Hi, I'm Adam, and this is a review of the ASXMOV Scorpion for the Panasonic GH5 and GH5s. So right off the bat, I want to say full disclosure, I was sent this unit for review from the company. However, all of the opinions expressed in this review are my own. I have not been told what to say. So what exactly is this thing? This is an all-in-one camera rig, shoulder rig for your GH5 or GH5s. And they actually have a couple different versions of this rig. They have another one that works with the Sony A7S II and R2. And then this rig also works with the GH4. So to give a quick sort of tour around it, I need to state first off that some of these components aren't what come with the Scorpion. These are custom pieces that I have added to the rig to make it more suit my needs. These are things that I've already owned, and you might be in a similar boat where you might already own certain items. So just know that you can customize the rig because it uses a lot of standard parts to allow you to switch some things out. So starting at the back, we have sort of the brain of the whole unit, and this houses all of the electronical components that you'll find in this rig. Everything starts with the power supply that's at the back here. This is a Sony L series battery, and that powers the camera as well as an additional accessory, and it can power the XLR input that you'll see here at the top. So I have an L series battery at the back. Down here you'll see there are two outputs. One of them goes into the included dummy battery that's inside the GH5s right now, and then there's an open port here. I often use it for powering my monitor. Right now I don't have any cables running to it at the moment, but you can either use this output or you can slap a battery on the back there. Above that is the HD SDI port. This thing can convert your HDMI signal that comes out of the camera and convert it to SDI if you have an SDI monitor. I personally don't, so I don't really use that port, but it's there if I want it to. Up above that we have our headphone jack and our XLR input, as well as a gain knob for the XLR input. Around the other side, we have the cutout for your GH5 or GH5s screen. So that folds right back into this sort of cutout into the main brain. All of the cables that come out of this little box kind of come out of a hole underneath it, and then they can wrap around underneath this platform here. So ones that aren't in use, like for me, I don't use the HDMI to SDI converter, so that HDMI cable is just nicely hidden down inside this platform. And the same thing for the headphone jack. At times, I don't want the headphone jack to be on the right side of the rig. Sometimes I want it to be in its original position, so I can hide that headphone cable down here when it's not in use. So I want to go over the main benefit to this rig, and that is it transforms your little handheld mirrorless camera into something that is more suited for like a full day production shoot on, say, like a narrative feature length film or a short film, what have you. It transforms that whole experience and makes this a lot more fun for me to use on a daily basis. I absolutely love the ability to have this thing on a tripod as is, and then with just a flick of a lever, loosen it and put it up on the shoulder. And that is what I often find myself doing with this thing, is making that quick transition between tripod use to handheld use to shoulder use. There's not many other products out there that can do it, and there are none that can do it while making the camera this usable. So here I've mounted the included handle, and as you can see, it has a remote shutter start and stop, so you can start and stop your recording right down here from this hand grip. You don't have to take your hand off the camera. This is great for documentary style shooting or any other style of shooting where you might need to quickly start a recording and stop it. So the rig is completely comfortable on top of my shoulder. It sits right on top. Very little amount of effort has to be used to balance the thing using my right hand. My left hand is free to use the follow focus, and I can see the screen right out in front here. And this is the same case with the included top handle as it is with my own custom one here. The hand grip works with a sort of rosette mount. It's not a standard like ARRI rosette, but it is a rosette mount, so you can flip the thing around and manipulate it to however is most comfortable for your hand. A quick note, this follow focus isn't included with the rig. However, ASXMOV does have their own follow focus that they do have available for purchase. Moving on to some design notes about the thing. This front rail block right here uses standard 15mm rods, so that's why I've been able to replace the included rods with some longer ones that run farther back of the unit so I can put my own shoulder pad here. The shoulder pad rods that come with the unit are not standard as far as I can tell. They are smaller than 15mm rods. So if you wanted to just swap out those that shoulder pad on the back, you will need to purchase longer rods to allow you to use a shoulder pad like this one. While we're on the subject of these rods, since they are the standard 15mm, you can shorten and lengthen them or use shorter or longer rails to get out of the way of your lenses. Say you have an ultra wide angle and the rails are starting to creep into frame, you can just shorten them or remove them entirely if they start creeping in. Getting the camera into the cage for the first time took me a little while because there is a certain order that you need to do it. For example, you need to sort of slide the camera in from the side with the screen out, because eventually you are going to need to have this screen fold back into the side of the Scorpion. I put the entire camera in the cage before I realized, oh, I needed the screen out. And the same thing goes for the dummy battery that's installed in the GH5s. You need to have your normal rechargeable battery out of the camera, and you need to have the dummy battery installed with the cable running out the little flap in the front before you put this in the cage. You won't be able to access that battery once it's in the cage. Getting this thing in and out of the rig does take a little bit of time. It's not an instantaneous process. There's no quick release, and frankly, there's no room for a quick release if you were thinking of adding one. I've been able to get putting it into the cage down to about 5 minutes and taking it out of the cage to be about a minute. But it's not something that I would want to do back and forth all day long during a shoot. You'll want to plan your shoots accordingly so that if you are going to put this thing on a Steadicam, for example, that maybe you do all of those shots in one chunk, or maybe you have another camera that you'll use for Steadicam work instead of putting this thing in and out. With that said though, I have never taken my camera out of this rig since I've gotten it. I've had it for about a month, and my GH5s has lived inside of it the entire time. And I think a big part of that comes down to my style of shooting, in that I did get the GH5s to be my narrative filmmaking tool. I don't use it as much for run and gun stuff. I use it on much more controlled sets, controlled lighting, controlled conditions, where having it into a bigger rig like this might suit it a little bit better. Battery life using these larger Sony L series batteries is phenomenal in comparison to the internal battery of the GH5s. I would say I could probably get about 4 hours of continuous use out of this battery. When you're using phantom power or the HD SDI converter, that will probably end up using a little bit more power. But just shooting alone, I've done a full day worth of interviews with the camera going on and off in between interviews, but a 6-hour day of shooting interviews, 12 interviews during that time, and I didn't have to change the battery. I was still at about 50% according to the camera's battery indicator. So a couple of minor gripes about the unit, the first of which is the top handle. It's a perfectly usable top handle. It does exactly what it's supposed to do, in that you can pick the camera up. The monitor mount on the end, same story. You can mount your monitor using it. It works great for that. But I think there was a little bit of a missed opportunity here, in that there are no additional 1/4-20 holes on the handle itself. There's a couple extra ones here on the monitor mount, but that's just really just to mount the monitor in a different position, whether, to adjust it left and right. But there's no extra 1/4-20 on the handle. There is a hot shoe up here, and this is where they would like you to mount your included shock mount for a shotgun microphone. But other than that, there's nothing. I end up building up my rigs in a whole bunch of different variety of situations, including using wireless mics and lights and things like that. And having the ability to put some additional accessories on this handle would have been really helpful. So that's part of the reason why I swapped out the handle for one of my own. Another reason for swapping the handle out for me was that I can easily take this handle off because it uses a NATO clamp. And this now fits into my bag just straight down. I don't have to disassemble this rig at all, other than taking the top handle and monitor off, and it fits in my bag nicely. So that is another good reason to maybe customize your rig if you have the additional equipment. So another note about customization, this top plate here doesn't come with the rig. This is another item that I happen to already have. You actually will see it in my Ultimate GH5 kit video. But this is attached to the top plate using the included thumb screw. That's sort of a hack together to make it work, and you'll need to do something similar if you want to swap out your top handle, because there is sort of a proprietary mount that is used with this top handle. So again, using the included screw and this cheese plate, I was able to add this top handle NATO rail. Another thing to know about the microphone jack is that this is phantom power only or completely off. You can't say take a Rode Link like I'm using to record this video. You can't take one of those with a 3.5mm to XLR cable and plug it in here, because that cannot use phantom power. It just takes a straight signal. So because of that, sometimes, depending on your microphone setup, you're not going to use this XLR port if you're using a wireless system like I'm using. So again, just to be very clear, this is phantom power only or completely off. Now with that said, the audio quality out of this phantom powered XLR port is great. So when you do use it, it's well worth it, and it's awesome to have this feature on this kit. So you're listening now to the audio quality coming out of the XLR port of the Scorpion. The boom mic is right above my head, just out of frame. It is a Audio-Technica 4073A, I believe, and that's being fed directly into the XLR port of the Scorpion and then into the GH5s. One thing that I wanted to go over before we leave this review is that you still have full control over the GH5s and all of the dedicated buttons on it while using this rig. So who is this rig for? This rig is for anyone that loves shooting on the shoulder, first and foremost. That is my absolute favorite way of shooting, and that is the main reason I was interested in this rig. But it's also for anyone that shoots a lot of narrative stuff where you have really long days. And while these small mirrorless cameras are absolutely amazing for how compact they are, if you do want to shoot like a long form, like feature-length film on one, you'll learn very quickly just how annoying they can really be to do that. Now, certain shots here and there, yeah, it's better to have the small form factor, but try shooting a feature-length film on one like I have, and you'll learn very quickly all of the shortcomings that come with those cameras. And this rig addresses many of them. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this short little review of the ASXMOV Scorpion. If you have any additional questions, please leave them in the comments down below. And if I get a ton of questions, maybe I'll make a follow-up video to address them. But until then, take care.